young and growing up, it was, to me, one of the best communities in the city of Detroit. And it was just a delightful place to live. And I just have fond memories. I don't know of anyone who could say, you know, that was a terrible place to grow up.
As in most cities, prior to World War II, the only real regulation of air pollution in Detroit consisted of local smoke ordinances. There was no real federal regulation of air pollution in the United States before the 1960s. But basically, the only regulation of air pollution was done by local governments. But the further you get from the center of downtown, and particularly when you get into places like 48217, there's essentially no regulation.
Marathon was this little thing stuck out there that kind of belched a somewhat of a stink. And people used to joke about our community because as you approached it, you could get rotten smell, which because we lived there, sadly, we almost got used to it.
A lot of toxic chemicals, for example, are regulated under what are called ambient screening values. And a lot of these are actually based on workplace safety standards. Industry associations have developed what they call threshold limit values. Companies will have a maximum amount of a toxic chemical that is allowed into the air for you to breathe. And a lot of these so-called threshold limit values are actually developed by industry itself.
Pollution has always been in my life. So just out of curiosity, I just started taking pictures of what was going on down there. And then I was like, this is not good, because I could literally see the pollution blowing over my community, over my mother's house, over my former neighbors' homes. And I was frightened for everybody. I was like, whoa, look at this impact. I mean, the picture behind me, I took. And that pollution you see back there, that's what it looks like at night. So that made me really concerned about the pollution. When I saw the level, I said, this is not going to work, not at all. And something needs to be said.
Unlike substances such as lead or sulfur dioxide or particulate matter, for which there are these national ambient air quality standards, there is no regular monitoring for other kinds of substances, like benzene, for example. Rather, companies self-report to the EPA or to state-level departments. In 2007, Marathon proposed a $2 billion expansion of its Detroit refinery, which has been operating since 1959. They promised that their emissions from the refinery expansion would only increase emissions insignificantly, maybe 15, maybe 18%. It actually increased them by at least 35%.
And let me throw in MDEQ and EPA. I hold them just as accountable as Marathon, because we have begged for years for an air monitoring system, but we can't get one. It would clearly show we need to get out of there. And we're the most polluted zip code in the state of Michigan.
The EPA is not systematically monitoring the releases of other kinds of pollutants through its monitoring stations, and there's a great deal of self-reporting on the part of industry, which is a little bit like self-reporting on the part of kids about cleaning their rooms. It's not always reliable. We also need to recognize that for some pollutants, there is no safe level of exposure. There is no safe level of exposure of children to mercury or lead. There's no safe level of exposure to benzene. These are not things that the phrase low level waves away into insignificance as if by a magic wand, unlike what some industry officials seem to think.
So I have a house that's free and clear. Nothing is owed on it. It's a nice house in great condition, and I can't live in it because I feel like I'm going to cut my health shorter by living there. It's a community with standards, with high standards in terms of how they want to live, but it's a poison community too.
Some activists call them sacrifice zones, but they follow a depressingly similar pattern.
I was diagnosed with kidney failure and had to have a kidney transplant. My sister had kidney failure and died before the age of 50. We come from a huge family, and no one else has ever had kidney issues except for me and my sister. My next door neighbor is on dialysis. The lady across the street in front of our house died on dialysis. So you have to start wondering, why are we all sick? Why do we all have kidney failure? I mean, why? Why?
We can't simply bracket the problems of pollution as something that those people who are not like us, have to worry about and imagine that we indeed are safe. Those who have suffered from pollution and who are continuing to fight should not be seen as merely protecting their own families, their own bodies, their own neighborhoods. They're protecting all of us.
If we're not successful in having this work out right for our community, I'm going to be very afraid for communities across the land. So if we get this right, maybe we can be the guiding force from some other communities to keep fighting, to never give up, and to try to work something out. And in the interim, we need to keep the pressure on for cleaner fuels, cleaner ways to do this than what we